Wednesday will be a critical day in the case of those leaked Pentagon documents, the classified documents. That's when 21-year-old suspect Jack Teixeira will have a detention hearing. He is charged under the Espionage Act with unauthorized retention and transmission of national defense information, also unauthorized removal and retention of the classified documents or material. Also on Wednesday, there is a classified briefing that is scheduled for all senators on this matter. The House has requested a similar meeting for its members as well. I want to bring in former CIA officer and FBI Special Agent Tracy Walder. You deal heavily in classified documents, or you did, so you know very well the process and who has access. The question I still haven't heard a good answer to, though, is how someone like this, a 21-year-old, would have access to the documents that he ended up sharing to the world.
Well, thank you for having me, Marni. And I do think that that's an excellent question. Look, I was 21 when I got the same security clearance. However, my job was different. I was at CIA. I was working with human sources. So yes, that is why I had the classification that I did. He was basically a network operator. He was in charge of global command intelligence that went back and forth across nations. And I do think that part of why he had that high of a security clearance is because of the information that was being transmitted across. Now, the question then lies is, was that just given too freely? I don't necessarily disagree with the clearance that he had, although I think I disagree with the amount of people that may have it.
Why do so many need access, have special clearance? I mean, what is the threshold?
It depends. That's the answer to that question. It really depends. A lot of times it's protecting our sources and methods. And so if you're looking here at classified signals intelligence, electronic intelligence, and human intelligence, which I would imagine that was the information that was transmitted across this global communications network that he was responsible for maintaining, that is probably the threshold in which why he was granted that top secret SCI, or sensitive compartmented information clearance.
So, as I mentioned, there's going to be a classified briefing scheduled for all senators. It sounds as though the House has requested something similar. What steps do you think that they will be asking for to mitigate the risk of access to this type of information?
I think what they're going to be looking at here is necessity and whether or not documents, do we have an overclassification problem? I think that's going to be one of the things we're going to look at. We classify about 50 million documents a year, and that makes it hard to track and then hold people accountable for them being mishandled. So I think one of the things that they are going to look through is, how was Mr. Teixeira vetted? What did his security clearance process look like? And was he given it for good reason? I think that's really what they're going to look into first.
And might they also be going back through who else now has security clearance, looking at the different levels and that threshold you mentioned a moment ago?
Absolutely. So when I entered the CIA, it was before September 11th. And really on the heels of me entering, we had the Robert Hanssen kind of espionage case. And as a result of that, they went back and re-polygraphed some people to ensure that they met a threshold. So I do suspect that something like this will also happen here.
And at that stage, when you're doing a polygraph, you're being questioned, what is the guidance that people with even minor levels of security clearance are given about the seriousness of having access to that information?
So that's a great question. When I left the CIA, as well as Mr. Teixeira, we all signed lifetime non-disclosure agreements. And what that means is that if we divulge information that we are not supposed to, we will potentially go to jail, and we can be tried under the Espionage Act. So really, he is violating his lifetime NDA.
So he knows the consequences. Everybody knows the consequences. So I guess, largely speaking, what message does this send with anybody with any level of security clearance?
I'll be honest with you, it's enraging to me. I try very, very, very hard not to divulge classified information because, quite frankly, I still have friends in these organizations, so we are putting lives at risk, and we are putting our national security at risk. And so the ramifications for this are incredibly high, and he is very well aware of what his actions are. And I really think he needs to be tried to the fullest scope of the law.
What do you make of the social media component of all of this? It's so much harder to police. I mean, one, the information should have never been out there. But then, I mean, it just spreads like wildfire on sites like Discord that we're now learning so much about. I mean, how do you control that?
I mean, in short, you don't, Marnie. I mean, that's the honest answer to that question. Now that these pictures of this information are out there, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. But one of the things that we do need to do better, I think, is bring social media component into the background investigation process. It's really not brought in a lot, and a lot of people don't know that. And I think is a huge window into someone's social activities and to someone's ideas and their thoughts and their inclinations to leak something like this.
You believe Teixeira's case, they'll make an example of him?
I hope so. It's hard to say for certain, but I do hope that they will, and hopefully this will deter people from doing this in the future.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider, and don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.